International conflicts and U.S. foreign policy in 2025. The global landscape in 2025 is defined by multiple international conflicts and shifting U.S. foreign policy priorities. Major geopolitical crises, including the Russia-Ukraine war, Middle East tensions, and the rise of a multipolar world order, are shaping U.S. strategic decisions. Key international conflicts in 2025. Russia-Ukraine war. The United States remains committed to supporting Ukraine against Russian aggression. The Biden administration, and potentially a future Harris presidency, emphasize military aid and diplomatic backing for Kyiv. However, there are concerns that reduced Western support could lead to a ceasefire favoring Russia, altering the balance of power in Eastern Europe, CFR, Trends Research. Middle East tensions. The Israel-Hamas war and escalating hostilities between Iran and Israel remain key concerns. The U.S. continues military aid to Israel while also attempting to negotiate peace efforts. However, the prospect of a two-state solution remains uncertain, largely due to political challenges within Israel and the Palestinian territories, CFR, Trends Research. China-Taiwan relations. Tensions in the Taiwan Strait continue to escalate as China increases its military presence. The U.S. has strengthened alliances in the Indo-Pacific, particularly with Japan and Australia, as a deterrent against potential Chinese aggression. Foreign policy, CFR. Iran and nuclear threats. The U.S. has taken a mixed approach toward Iran, with the Biden administration pursuing diplomatic efforts while also maintaining sanctions. A second Trump administration might return to a maximum pressure strategy, further straining relations. Trends Research, Stimson Center. North Korea's military expansion. North Korea has continued missile tests and nuclear advancements, posing a security threat in the region. The U.S. has focused on strengthening security ties with South Korea and Japan to counter Pyongyang's actions. CFR, Stimson Center. U.S. foreign policy trends in 2025. Shift to a multipolar world. The U.S. no longer dominates global governance as it once did. While still a powerful player, Washington faces challenges from rising powers like China and a resurgent Russia. This shift impacts international trade agreements and security pacts. Stimson Center, Trends Research. Retreat from multilateralism. Depending on the administration in power, the U.S. may either reinforce international institutions or withdraw from them. Trump's first term showed that the U.S. can act as a spoiler in global agreements, while a Democratic administration might prioritize diplomacy. Stimson Center. Military and economic influence. The U.S. continues to use military aid and economic sanctions as key foreign policy tools. However, there are debates over whether direct intervention or diplomatic engagement is the best approach in conflicts like Ukraine and the Middle East. Foreign policy, CFR. Conflicts and U.S. foreign policy in 2025. The geopolitical landscape in 2025 is defined by multiple international conflicts and shifting U.S. foreign policy priorities. With ongoing tensions in Ukraine, the Middle East, and the Indo-Pacific, U.S. strategic decisions are increasingly complex. As Washington grapples with a changing global order, its foreign policy choices will determine not only America's global standing but also the stability of international relations. Major international conflicts in 2025. Russia-Ukraine war. The war between Russia and Ukraine continues to shape global security. The United States remains a key ally of Ukraine, supplying advanced military aid and economic assistance. However, a potential shift in U.S. policy could impact the trajectory of the conflict. While the Biden administration has advocated for continued military support, a second Trump administration might scale back aid in favor of diplomatic pressure on both Kyiv and Moscow. The Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, identifies several possible outcomes for the war. Continued stalemate. Ukraine holds its defensive lines but struggles to reclaim lost territory. Russian gains. Due to decreasing Western support, Russia consolidates control over occupied regions. Negotiated ceasefire. A politically pressured truce that may favor Russia due to shifting international alliances. Regardless of the outcome, the U.S. role in Ukraine remains a central debate in foreign policy circles. Middle East tensions. Israel-Hamas conflict. The Israel-Hamas war, ignited in October 2023, persists in 2025. The U.S. has maintained its support for Israel's right to self-defense while facing growing calls for a humanitarian resolution. Military aid to Israel remains high, yet pressure from progressive lawmakers and international actors may push the administration toward advocating for a ceasefire. Iran and regional proxy wars. Iran continues to support proxy groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, escalating tensions with Israel and Saudi Arabia. U.S. policy has focused on deterring Iranian aggression through sanctions and military deployments in the region. However, diplomatic efforts to revive the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, have largely stalled. CFR and the International Crisis Group outline key scenarios. Escalation into direct war. Iran-Israel tensions could lead to a broader regional war, dragging the U.S. into direct military involvement. Proxy warfare intensifies. Iran's allies engage in attacks, keeping the conflict at a low intensity but prolonged level. Diplomatic breakthrough. Though unlikely, back-channel negotiations could lead to de-escalation. China-Taiwan relations. China's increasing assertiveness over Taiwan poses one of the most significant security risks in 2025. Beijing has intensified military exercises near Taiwan, heightening fears of a potential invasion or blockade. The U.S. has responded by expanding military cooperation with allies like Japan, Australia, and the Philippines. Increasing arms sales to Taiwan under the Taiwan Relations Act. Strengthening the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, Quad, with India, Japan, and Australia. U.S. policy options include diplomatic deterrence, military countermeasures, and economic sanctions on China. However, a direct conflict remains unlikely unless China perceives a diminishing U.S. commitment to Taiwan. North Korea's military expansion. North Korea continues to develop nuclear weapons and intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, posing a direct threat to regional stability. In 2025, Pyongyang has tested several new missile systems, prompting strong condemnation from the U.S. and its allies. Potential U.S. responses include increased sanctions, restricting North Korea's economic capabilities. Military deterrence, enhancing U.S. troop presence in South Korea and Japan. Diplomatic engagement, restarting negotiations, though North Korea remains resistant. U.S. foreign policy strategies in 2025. Military and strategic alliances. The U.S. has reinforced military alliances to counter global threats. NATO, increased deployments in Eastern Europe to deter Russian aggression. AUKUS, strengthened defense collaboration with Australia and the UK. Quad Alliance, enhanced Indo-Pacific security cooperation to counter China. Economic sanctions and trade policies. Economic pressure remains a critical tool of U.S. foreign policy. Sanctions on Russia, targeting energy exports and financial institutions. Trade restrictions on China, limiting access to advanced semiconductor technology. Iran sanctions, controlling oil exports and financial transactions. Diplomatic initiatives. While military deterrence remains essential, diplomacy continues to play a role. Middle East peace talks, efforts to mediate between Israel and Palestinian factions. U.S.-China dialogue, high-level meetings to prevent conflict over Taiwan. Nuclear nonproliferation efforts, addressing threats from Iran and North Korea. As 2025 unfolds, U.S. foreign policy faces unprecedented challenges. From supporting Ukraine to managing tensions in the Middle East and countering China's influence, Washington must navigate a complex and evolving geopolitical landscape. Whether through military deterrence, economic sanctions, or diplomatic engagement, U.S. actions will shape the future of global stability. The geopolitical landscape in 2025 is defined by multiple international conflicts and shifting U.S. foreign policy priorities. With ongoing tensions in Ukraine, the Middle East, and the Indo-Pacific, U.S. strategic decisions are increasingly complex. As Washington grapples with a changing global order, its foreign policy choices will determine not only America's global standing but also the stability of international relations. The role of domestic politics in foreign policy. The U.S. foreign policy agenda is heavily influenced by domestic political considerations. With the 2024 elections shaping the policy direction, key issues include partisan divisions on military spending. Republicans generally advocate for increased defense budgets, while Democrats may seek a more balanced approach. Public opinion on foreign engagement. The American public is increasingly wary of prolonged military conflicts, influencing policymakers to seek diplomatic solutions where possible. Election outcomes and policy shifts. A second Trump administration could see a return to an America First policy, reducing foreign aid and shifting priorities toward economic nationalism. Future challenges and opportunities. Looking beyond 2025, U.S. foreign policy must adapt to climate change and global security, addressing environmental challenges that exacerbate conflicts, such as resource shortages. Cybersecurity threats, responding to increasing cyber warfare from state actors like Russia and China. The role of emerging powers, engaging with countries like India and Brazil, which are playing more significant roles in global governance. As 2025 unfolds, U.S. foreign policy faces unprecedented challenges. From supporting Ukraine to managing tensions in the Middle East and countering China's influence, Washington must navigate a complex and evolving geopolitical landscape. Whether through military deterrence, economic sanctions, or diplomatic engagement, U.S. actions will shape the future of global stability.